Hey everyone, Cell here with another build update video on the Trickster from the previous build diary video. This is using a total of 3 or 4 Transfigure gems, 2 copies of Rain of Arrows of Saturation, and either Volatile Dead of Seething or Detonate Dead of Chain Reaction, depending on the content I'm doing. Typically running Detonate Dead in maps and then swapping Volatile Dead of Seething against single targets, but I am also experimenting with using Detonate Dead in some bossing scenarios as well. So, skipping ahead a decent amount compared to the last video where I was essentially just entering maps. In this video, running in the background right now, I hit level 93, and the gear and all that hasn't changed a ton. A couple of the slots are pretty rigid in terms of bow. You're going to have a Shaper bow with cast on crit support. Amulet, you're going to have Leadership's Price, etc. And nothing has changed much in that regard. I did end up getting a Cluster Jewel, so the tree looks a little different than it otherwise would without one. I do have some gearing changes planned, and that's part of what I'm doing in this video here. I'm currently running Blight. I am deciding to go after a new bow craft. I'm going to use the same bow because this one's already 6-linked, and it's kind of a 1 or 2 property bow, depending on how you look at it. Or 2 or 3, rather, I guess. And having that extra property of damage is going to come in handy. So I am going to go with Essence of Fear on the bow to get minion damage until I get cast on crit, and then try to craft suffixes beyond that point. That means I'll need to pick up Spiritual Aid with an Anointment, and in order to do that, I need to do some Blight. So I've been doing some Blight on Wastepool, and then running Blighted maps, and Blight Ravaged maps as well. And the aim of this is not only to get the oils you need for the actual Anointment, but if you're not familiar, to anoint a corrupted amulet, you need a tainted oil, which only comes from corrupted Blighted maps. So, I have to run corrupted Blighted maps. Of course, you're on the risk of making them difficult or extremely difficult by corrupting them. If you get mods that don't agree with your Blight strategy, haven't run into that yet. I did fail one super early because I just... I don't know, my brain was wrecked and I did not remember how to do Blighted maps, I guess, because I failed within like a minute. But since then, no issues. I've run a couple Blight Ravage maps as well. 6 of them, I believe. They're fairly common from Blighted maps, especially when you're corrupting them and they have plenty of quantity to scale up the number of reward chests. So yeah, been having a generally good time with that. I kind of like the Blight maps, Blight Ravage maps especially. It's just a lot of loot, a lot of high item level bases that I'm picking up as well. Coupled with good base percentiles on defensive stat ratings as well, so those will be nice to have in handy. Those will be handy to have around for future crafting projects, things like that. I'm also looking for a new body armor for this character. Haven't decided if I want to go with a pure evasion base or a hybrid base. In terms of socket colors, it doesn't really matter that much, but just about maximizing my energy shield. Defensively speaking, the build has incredibly good sustain, better than any other build I've played just because of the hit rate and the fact that I have a discipline, energy shield on hit, Watcher's Eye. Again, like, if I take damage to my ES, I will be right back up to full pretty much immediately. So then the issue becomes chaos damage and one-shots. One-shots are basically the only issue for a lot of builds, including this one. So with the amount of recovery I have, and some builds do struggle on recovery as opposed to mitigation, this build is kind of the opposite. So I'm rocking like 5.1k life, no major like super good defensive bonuses. I'm still not spell suppression capped, which is pretty bad, but that's more of a gearing issue than anything. and part of the reason I want to recraft my chest to finish out that last little bit there. But aside from that, I have no extra max resistances, no elemental mitigation. I have no physical damage reduction outside of adrenaline, which is not always up. Which brings up another point. I may end up dropping Tanuahi for bossing scenarios. I feel like it's pretty good for maps, just because the extra movement speed is nice, and it activates frequently enough in maps, but if I get chunked by a hit against a tough enemy or a boss, I don't have that much life recovery, so it's hard to hit full life again and remove the leech instances to roll the chance for onslaught or adrenaline, so that can be a bit painful at times. My thought for gloves in terms of bossing would be to make essence crafted minion damage gloves, so there's the same essence of fear, you can use those on gloves to get minion damage, and then you can get an eldritch implicit for minion damage, so if I'm going spiritual aid anointment anyways, then I can go ahead and do that for extra boss damage, so that could be nice as well. Apart from that, character has gone pretty smoothly. I have a bit of a surprise here, I guess. Maybe some of the luckiest I've ever gotten. The item I got isn't particularly insane. It's the kind you tend to need multiple copies of, but it's one that certain players of a certain playstyle, unique collectors, can struggle with. They get towards the end of their collection of uniques, and then they take a long time to get this one. So let's find out what it is, I guess. So as I said, I was running a lot of Blight maps and a lot of Blight Ravage maps. Have another batch here after I finish out these waste pools to run, and I did end up getting if I can find it here, Strangle Gasp in 5 Blight Ravage maps. Those are the only 5 Blight Ravage maps I've ever completed. Never done any before this league. 5 maps for this is absolutely insane. Again, people go way too long to get this because of how rare it is. And I almost didn't notice it because my filter is not strict enough for Blight Ravage maps right now. And so the loot was flooding the screen, and I could barely see anything, and looking around for uniques, saw an Onyx Amulet, and I'm like, oh, hey, there it is. But I did think it would be great if I got one for this video, so here we are. Don't know if I'm going to keep this for the collection, or anoint it and corrupt it to get a rare one, and then possibly Mythic Orbit. Don't know yet. There's a lot of RNG there, of course. You could corrupt it and have nothing happen to it. You could corrupt it and get an extra curse or max res or something. So don't know what I'll do with this. Maybe I'll put it to a vote at some point. Again, it's the only one I have, and it could take me forever to get, so if I decide I care about the unique collection, then that'll be something to consider as well. Here, like I said, not a whole lot has changed because the gear's pretty rigid for the most part. I did get a new quiver. This is actually a quiver I got while leveling one of my other characters. And it just so happened to have some res I need in an open suffix. I actually, for the longest time, didn't have the Frenzy Charge gain mod, as I did not in the footage I was just running. So, extra crit chance, always nice, of course. And the Frenzy Charges are going to be 12% more damage. So that's a pretty good damage upgrade. And basically what happened was I switched around a bunch of my gear to try to fix resistances and get more Chaos Res to fight the King in the Mist. And I didn't realize I could swap my crafted Fire Res and my body armor to Lightning and Chaos, which is what I had crafted here, so I just swapped that over. Basically turned my Fire Res craft here into the Frenzy Charge gain here. So it's pretty nice. 67 Chaos Res feels pretty manageable. I did end up taking down the King in the Mist. I got a really crappy jewel from it. I don't even remember what's on it. But at least I got the extra slot here. So then, I also got a Diamond Flask. I remember I was saying something about that last video. So that's a pretty big upgrade. An extra 155% crit chance here is very nice, and because of that, I ended up dropping my Blast Rain trigger here for Spell Cascade again. So just sticking with the Rain of Arrows of Saturation, Mana Forge, Life Tap, Cast and Crit, Desecrate, Spell Cascade. So it does feel much more smooth than the last video. And with the Diamond Flask, I dropped my charm here that was giving me base crit chance for Corpse Life. That's additive with this up here. So they're going from 110% life to 125%, which is about 13% more damage. This charm here, cover enemies in ash. I have no other sources of enemies take increased damage except for punishment, which means if I don't have punishment up, or it's not active because they're not low life, this is 20% more damage. Otherwise, obviously less because punishment. I could swap this out with something else as well. It's kind of just the best one I had for damage at the moment. And other than that, kind of just life res gear on fractured pieces. I am, again, hurting for spell suppression. I have 88. This is actually only 78 because I have Revenge of the Hunted here and I'm on full life. I do have the lucky suppression mastery. For the most part, though, I seem to be dying to chaos damage a significant amount, or just not even that necessarily, but my low life recovery. My ES recovery is spot on. It's just my life recovery that is a bit more painful. So I have considered the possibility of maybe going for CI, like maybe there's some CI version of the build that you could entertain. Haven't given that one too much thought. It would require a bit more finesse in terms of the attribute juggling. If you push further up into here, you're getting a lot more int, so you'd have to find other ways to get dexterity, like pathing this way instead of this way, for example. And maybe just re-gearing a little bit as well, which is a little finicky when you're trying to keep your attributes balanced. So I'm not going to mess with it for now, and I am considering rerolling again. I know I say that like every video now, but this is the league of rerolling if there ever was one. So many cool builds people are coming out with that I want to keep trying out. And the league mechanic, like I keep telling myself, most of these builds are going to be around next league in some form or another. And so I can play them then if I run out of time this league, or more like run out of ambition. So this league I am becoming a lot more curious about running some MF strats using the league mechanic, because I'm seeing people pull off some crazy stuff. Manny just got a tier 0 earlier today running the strategy. It's tier 7 maps you run because the league mechanic is so insanely hard, and it hits like a nice level breakpoint for Abyss and a couple other things. So I think I may end up checking that out, which will have me rolling a Poison Caustic Arrow Pathfinder, I believe. For now, though, I am going to stick with farming some essences. I guess I didn't go over a couple other things here. Cluster Jewel, super basic. It's one notable. Ideally, I get a second notable to push this here, and clean this up a little bit, pick up this jewel socket. This medium cluster isn't anything special, just a little bit of damage and non-damaging ailment effect. Not sure how big of a deal that is at the moment. It's Cobalt Jewel, mostly for the Corrupted Blood immunity, because of how often I hit. I don't want to have to, and my low physical mitigation, I don't want to have to rely on my flask for that if I don't have to. And in terms of Atlas, it looks like this. A little bit messy because I have a mix of various things that I probably shouldn't. Like I'm running Exile altars right now for the most part, but I'm still spec'd into destructive play type things. The plan after I finish up getting my tainted oil is to spec into harvest and do more of an Alk and Go crop rotation type of thing with this build to alongside my essence farming, so I can swap into essences I need, because I think I am going to go for deafening upgrade undesirable essences into deafening and then roll those into elemental damage essences or essences of fear and go from there. So yeah, that's pretty much it for the video right now. Next video, I think before I wrap up this character, I do want to take down Uber Maven. That's pretty much the only Uber I'll be attempting on this character, I think. So stick around for that video, and thanks for watching. See you next time. Peace.